This is part 2 of a praise and worship guitar in the key of E. This will apply to not just praise and worship, but really lots of styles of guitar. But this works really well for praise and worship. In part 1, we talked about a couple things: playing the E chord and then adding our pinky here, making it an E sus. I'm going to zoom in real quick so we can see my hand here. Playing E, making an E sus. Playing a second chord instead of an A, and then taking our first finger behind there. F sharp minor chord, F sharp minor 7, and B sus. And if you don't know those, go back to the part 1. But here we go. So what I'm going to talk about now in part 2 is taking these forms and applying them up and down the neck. Now, the main two forms, really three forms I'm talking about. The first form, I'll just go and talk about is this kind of B form, this B sus form, and it's kind of like a power chord for on the A string here. So we're not playing any of the top string on these right here. We're just playing the bottom 5. So right here, if we just take this form and slide it up. Play a lot of chords here. So we have B sus, C sharp minor 7, which we talked about in part 1, and then if you go up one more, it's a D chord. It's not going to work always, but you can use that. If you're in the key of E and they write down a D chord, that usually ends up sounding pretty good. And then if you slide up to the 7th fret right here, we've got the E chord. Okay. So this chord right here, the E, is going to, if you do, it's going to be a similar thing as the A second. The A second we did. Our first finger was behind there, and we're doing this kind of number. And the same thing is going to be here. We have our pinky, and then our second finger doing that. And that is a great little lick to play. And you know, it's a really good thing to do to transition. Well, not necessarily transition, but to change things up from this E. So if you were doing, say, for instance, Open the Eyes of My Heart, and you did Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. So you can just kind of mix that up. And so every time you play the chord, you're not going to want to play the same exact one. You're not always going to want to stay down here on the E. You're not always going to want to stay up here on the E. Another thing you can do with the E that's really easy, use this sparingly, but if you just take your E form here and pull it all the way up on the, I guess your first finger would be on the 13th fret. This is your octave right here, so it'd be your next one up. But you know, you could do... But I would only do that like one time. You know, you don't want to do it too many times, otherwise it, you know, it's kind of like your one trick that you're doing all the time. So that's our E, C sharp minor 7, B sus, A second, and you can always go all the way up here too. The same thing with your A second. You can hit that on the 14th fret there. Again, use that sparingly. Okay, now going to the, if we know our bar chords, normally we'd play like an A bar chord would be like this, a B bar chord would be like this. Okay, what we're doing is this is going to be talking about the E string now. So if we take the A bar chord, and I'm basically just going to leave the bottom 2 strings open on here. So I'm taking up my finger, and so my fingers I'm playing are this. Just like that. The bottom 2 are open. See how full that sounds as opposed to, or even, this is, in my opinion, the most full A chord you can get because you're playing all 6 strings, and it just has a very open sound. And so there's another A that you have the option of. Now here's another great chord if you slide it up 2 frets, just like a B chord, except we're keeping the bottom 2 open. And this is actually a, you're adding a suspension in there with the bottom string, and so you kind of have to be careful on that a little bit, like we talked about in part 1. If you're playing any suspensions on your Bs, you just have to let your piano player or keyboard player know that on your Bs you're going to be playing a sus chord instead of just straight B. Otherwise you'll kind of conflict. One of you will be playing this, one of you will be playing this, and that's basically going to conflict like that. But it sounds good if the 2 notes are spread apart enough, and if you both are on the same page. So here we have the E, A, B, and then our E here, C sharp minor, B, A, F sharp minor 7. Okay. Real quick, F sharp minor 7. You can also do this too. We're up at our E. If you slide that up 2 more, you got an F sharp minor 7 up there. This guitar has a buzz right there, so that's why it doesn't sound good, but that chord actually sounds pretty good. So basically, if you know these 2 strings, all the fretboard, you know, A open string, B, C, C sharp, D, E flat, E, going on up. If you know all these notes, then these chords work on the same way. So if you have E, D, C sharp minor, B, A, F sharp minor, all of those same form, played on every single one of them. Now, on the E string, we've got the E, A, B. Now this F sharp minor chord, this can also be used in other areas. If I slide all the way up here to the C sharp right here, this is going to be your 9th fret, and I play this form up here, that's just another chord you can play. And also, if you take this form, you put all the way up here, this is a D note, you can do that as well. So like for instance, anyway, so those 2 chords, basically there's 3 forms if you learn them, the 3 forms of just the E on the bass string, and then our F sharp minor, this form here, and then this power chord thing. You have a really good sound. So that is part 2 of the key of E in praise and worship guitar. Get these guys down, and the key to it is not just to have, you know, one chord that you play. Not every single time, okay, I'm going to play my E here, and every single time I'm going to play my B here, and my A here. But mixing it up and adding those little things to it. So hopefully this is helpful to you, and check out part 3. It's going to get a little bit more interesting. In part 3 I'll be teaching you how to do chords that are like when you see E over G sharp or A over C sharp, and how to play those. So hopefully this is helpful for you.